Hello, students. Welcome back. Let's go over Chapter 0. Professor Benavides here, and hopefully you installed your software and you're ready to start getting into Alice and NetBeans. So Chapter 0 is going to be all about Alice, and Chapter 1 is going to be all about Java, and then every chapter after that's going to blend them both. Now, why do we start off with Chapter 0? Now, Chapter 0 has significance in the field of computer science, and you'll get a better understanding of the significance when we talk about arrays. So for right now, let's talk about Alice. And we'll talk about the purpose of Alice, how to set up a scene, and some minor coding inside of Alice. So what is Alice? It was created at Carnegie Mellon. And it was written in honor of Lewis Carroll, who wrote Alice Adventures in Wonderland. So Alice makes it easy to create an animation or interactive games. It's designed for beginners who want to learn object-oriented programming. In Alice, 3D objects, people, aliens, animals, props, are placed on a scene. Then students drag and drop tiles to create a program to animate the objects. These tiles correspond closely to statements in Java. Okay? Alice allows students to immediately see how the program runs, enables them to easily understand the relationship between the programming statements and the behavior of the objects in their program. Okay, so we're going to be talking about Alice 3, and this is what it looks like. I'm going to run Alice just a while. But let's just go over the anatomy of the scene. When you start Alice, after you select a world, on the left, you're going to see the scene editor and the methods, and on the right, you'll have the code editor, and below, you'll have the tiles or the controls that you'll drag onto the code editor. The first thing that people typically do is they go in and set up the scene. After they set up the scene, then they'll come back over here and code. Okay, so it's really as easy as that. So let's talk about setting up the scene. We will click on the Setup Scene button. When we do that, we'll end up here where we'll be able to manipulate the camera, drill down into the gallery, which is a bunch of sort of templates that we can then create objects and place them onto the screen. And then on the right-hand side, we have the properties or methods and the handle styles. We'll go over that one at a time. So the gallery. The gallery provides us with a way of drilling down on a variety of groups, objects that we can place on the screen. So we can go ahead and browse the gallery by class hierarchy, by theme, by group. We can search as well, and we can also put in shapes and text and custom classes. Here's an example of drilling down by class hierarchy where we get an adult and put them on the screen. Now, when you drag that, I called it a template, but what it helps us to do is it's a class that we end up using to create an object. When we drag it onto the screen and release, we can accept the name of that object, which is girl, or we can add another name to it. What you see up here above is we're going to be learning the significance of that. And what is happening here is that this is code for creating an object. We're creating an object here called girl, and it's being created from a class called adult person. Okay? More on that as we go along. And once we put this object on the screen, we can go ahead and manipulate it in all different kinds of ways by clicking on the style handles. The default style handle allows us to rotate the object. The rotation button allows us to go ahead and rotate in all directions. And then the move button allows us to move the object back and forward, whereas the resize button allows us to resize the object, make it bigger, smaller. And when you manipulate the object, don't be afraid to experiment. And if you feel that you get lost, The book doesn't talk about it, but let me tell you about a friend of mine. It's this undo button. Clicking on the undo button will take you back and fix things a lot faster than you can trying to go ahead and fix what you thought you did. Okay? So every object can be manipulated to a very fine extent. Here we see how the clownfish, the body parts of the clownfish can be acquired and manipulated. And as the chapters move on, we'll learn more about that. Now, what I want to do for my little demo for this chapter is to at least get you started on how to go ahead and do an Alice project. I'm not going to go over every single little detail. That's what the exercises are for. Remember, the exercises give you step-by-step instructions on how to do something, right? The assignments are a little bit more open-ended. So basically, for what I want to do here is get you started on one of these. I want to show you how to save a file, how to open the file. We did that last time. I did it last time to the default directory, where the default is. Now I want to save to the folder structure that the author recommended. Remember the folder structure that we created in the prefix? That's the one that the author recommends so that we can organize our work. So rather than, and I ended up creating this folder structure on the desktop, but you could put it anywhere. You could put it on your flash drive. You could put it in your documents folder. It's pretty much where you want to put it. But in the last one, I went ahead and showed you where the default places are so you can at least know where they go when you don't designate a location. So in this particular case, we're going to go ahead and start Alice. I'm just going to go over the brief idea on here. And first of all, she tells you what the goal is, what the project's going to be about. We're going to put some objects on the screen, and then we're going to have them do some stuff. So the first thing we do is we choose the grass template, the world, right? And then we're going to go ahead, we're going to save early on. We're going to do a file save as. We're going to call it vegan, right? And look at what she tells you to. She wants you to save this file to the chapter 1 exercise. Remember, I just called it CH01 for simplicity. And then she ends up going into the scene editor. She drills down on animals and gets the cow, puts the silly cow on the screen, right? She creates an object. See how we're creating an object? The objects are typically in lowercase. That's one of the more important things that you're going to learn in this class. And that's important not just in Alice, but in Java. So objects, when you name them, and in this case, we're accepting the name, the default name cow. If you want, you could call it, whatever name that you want, whatever most cows called Betsy, right? Notice how cow is being created from cow with a capital C. So capital C is the class, the template, or whatever you would want to call it. So then we go ahead and add a chicken, and then we add a fish. So we create a little scene here. Then we end up going into, we leave the scene editor, and we're going to go over to the code editor, and we have a little storyboard as to what we're going to do here. First of all, we're going to go ahead and put some comments in. And after we put comments are really important. They typically will have your name, the date, and the purpose of your program. And then we start coding. And that can be done in different ways. For example, you can go over here to the methods, and you can drag and drop procedures and functions onto the code window to have certain actions occur, right? Or we can manipulate some of the body parts and have them move, like what she's going to end up having you do here. We're getting the head and we're moving it down. So we're going to do like a little simulation of movement. When the project runs, these things are going to go ahead and happen, and it happens. Code is what is going to make it happen. Okay, so as you can see here, you're writing your code and then you run it. One big thing to remember about Alice is that when you run a project in Alice, it doesn't save it. You have to actually manually save, which is different from other kinds of environments that we use to code in. Professionally, typically when you run, it's compiled. So it's very different in that respect. You have to remember that you got to save as well as run it if you want to go ahead and see your project take form. So as you continue on here, notice that we're writing our code in a purple window called My First Method. In the top, we have our comments, and then we have statements that we have dragged on here, and we have dragged, we're utilizing the get head method. These are, in this particular case, functions that ask a question or return a value, right? And if you'll keep on noticing here that we're going to have enter a few say statements. These perform an action. So what's going to happen here is the cow is going to actually say something, not with voice in this particular case, but a little bubble or a little text window is going to come up on the screen, and they're going to say something like, well, you can see right there, the cow is going to say, eat more chicken. Okay, so this is pretty much how your program is going to go ahead and run. It's going to perform these actions, then the what is it now? The fish chimes in, right? Or somebody else chimes in, and one says eat more chicken, the other one says eat more fish, right? So it's like a just follow along the directions, and you end up completing the assignment here where the cow says eat more chicken, and then the chicken says eat more fish. So you can see where they're going on this, and then of course the fish says go vegan. Can you guess that the author of your book is a vegan? Okay, right. So not a little secret, but it's it's a way of life, right? So run your program and test it, save it, and exit. So that's pretty much it. Now I'm going to just go ahead and just do top level on this. I'm going to concentrate on getting you to save this to the right place. And if you can go through these steps, you can go ahead and complete this. Now, if things don't work out right, a lot of times it's because these paragraphs can get kind of long. What happens a lot of times is that people will read the first sentence, but then they won't read the second sentence or the last sentence. So you've got to read very, 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 very carefully. Don't be afraid to go back and redo. You will learn a lot more if you just go back and redo this, redo a project. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just start Alice. And select the world. You would select the one that whatever the project tells you to select, you could select it, right? And then we're going to go ahead and go directly into the scene setup. I'm going to drill down and find, I could find a cow by either searching or going over here and searching this way, right? Since I knew it has 4 feet. I mean, I was going to click on biped, but then I thought about it. This is not, this cows don't have 2 feet, right? So I get my little cow, put her on here, and I'm going to accept the default name. Remember, you're creating an object here. The object is called cow. Clicking on OK. All right. So let's go ahead and verify. This is the scene editor. This is the camera. We can change the camera view here. We're automatically in default mode. In default mode, we can go ahead and rotate the object. Okay. In rotation mode, we have more rotation capabilities. Right? And if you get mixed up, just click on undo. Right? Then we have the move, which allows me to move a cow or move an object back or forward or left or right or whatever, right? Click on undo. Or we can resize, like if I want to make this cow small or large or whatever, then you can go ahead and do that. Remember, default gives me this rotation that way, like that, okay? So this is the properties window, methods window, if you want to call it that. As the course goes on, you'll be learning how to work more with these properties. Remember, down here below, we've got the gallery, and this is where we can drill down on our gallery, okay? I'm going to go ahead and go directly into the code editor now, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how to drag tiles in. Now, First thing we always start off with is with a comment. So I'm going to drag a comment in here and drop it. And we're going to put in our name. And we're going to go ahead and put in the date. Okay. And then we'll come over here and drag the say statement in here. Drop it. And then click on custom string. And then we'll go ahead and say, you know, I'm just going to say go vegan, right? I'll just get to the punchline. Of course, you have to go ahead and do the exercise the way you're going to go through all the steps. I'm just going ahead and just short circuit it. And, you know, you may not want to do this, but I always put mine at 2 because the statements go by way too fast for my little eyes to see on here. Okay. So some things that are not discussed in the book, so let's go ahead and go over them. If you hold down the control key and drag one of these, it allows you to copy a line of code. So you could go ahead and go in here and then just edit that if you wanted to, right? Now, what if I wanted to delete a line of code? I don't think it was covered in this chapter. Let's say you want to delete, you did that by mistake, right? Somehow or another, it just happened. And you want to get rid of the duplication here. So you would think that you could just right mouse click on here and go delete, but it's not there. Okay. So how do you do this? A long time ago, there used to be a little trash can. Okay, so this is the way you do it. You click on the line of code and you drag it over here to the left-hand side and drop it, and that's how you delete the line of code. Okay, so they say that's intuitive, right? So as you drag it, you get like a little symbol of a trash can, and the line of code is gone, right? So again, down here at the bottom, you've got these tiles. And later on, we'll learn how to use these control structures like if statements and the while statement. And we'll learn the distinction between the procedures and functions a little bit more. Remember, a procedure performs an action like say, whereas a function asks a question or returns a value. Like when you say something like get width, you wanted to get the width of the cow, right? That returns the width. So it's a function, right? So let's go ahead and save this, and let's go ahead and save this to the right chapter folder. So I'm going to go ahead and go File, and I'm going to go, the first time you save, it's the same thing as Save As, right? I'm going to go ahead and then drill down to my folder structure. Typically, it'll open up in the default file structure here. So we'll go to the desktop where I created. Remember, I put the folder there, and I called it. Oh, I have a lot of stuff on my folder here, right? I just called it Learning Java. Remember, hers was a little bit longer, but I condensed it. Remember, so I'm going to double click on that, and then this is an exercise. So I double click on that. Oh, I forgot to create a folder for chapter 0. So let me just go ahead and do one real quick. Right mouse click on here. We're going to go to new. Did you know you could create folders inside dialog boxes? Yes, you can. So we'll go to chapter 00, right? So now I'm going to open up chapter 0. And finally, I'm going to go ahead and save my vegan thingy in here and save. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and close, and I'm going to verify that I saved it to the right place. So here's that folder. Inside of here, we've got the 2 folders here. We're going to drill down on exercises, go to the chapter 0, and here's that vegan project file. Now, one thing you want to notice here is that Alice files end in a .a3p file extension. You don't get a chance to see file extensions by default in Windows or on the Mac. Since I'm on Windows right now, I have to go to View and click on the checkbox here for file name extensions. So the default is not to see the file extension. But most programmer type people, they just love to see everything. So you go to View and you put the check mark on file name extension so you can see the file name. Remember, every time we create an Alice project, this decoy, I mean, there's a purpose for this, but it's not covered in the book, right? there's a vegan.bak folder, and there's a file saved in there. We're not going to be dealing with that in this class. We're only going to be dealing with this file. So hopefully you know the difference between these two things. Okay, this is a folder and this is a file. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to open it up using Alice now, and we'll conclude my little demo presentation. Of course, the easy way to open it up would go to recent, right? I mean, why go through all that trouble and get it, you know? But we're going to drill down it. We're going to go File System, Browse. I'm going to, well, it ended up going to that, remembering where I was. But basically, if it didn't know that, I would go to the desktop, open up my folder, Learning Java, go into Exercises, 00, and then double-click on the A3P file. And OK. That should open up your file. Okay. So as far as the mechanics of the exercises, you'll learn the material that she talks about if you go through the hands-on exercises. And she tells you that point blank. So she will walk you through what the difference is between a procedure and a function, and how to add a comment, and all that kind of good stuff. If you notice right now, if I add another line of code, she doesn't cover, but let me just show you, there's not much difference between think and say. If I add think on here and go into custom string, and then say, I wonder what's for dinner, right? Do you think cows think that? So, I can go ahead and run this, go vegan. I wonder what's for dinner. It's kind of like a slightly different graphic on there. So if I try and close here, it'll say, hey, you haven't saved. You want to save. Typically, you would go File, Save, but at least it protects you a little bit here, and you'll just click on Yes, right, and exit. So those are that's how you get in and get out. That's what I was most concerned with in your first chapter, because Chapter 0 just introduces you to Alice. It's an environment to learn object-oriented programming. Everything is an object, and objects have properties, and objects have behaviors, right? So a property of an object would be like, for example, Alice has a blue dress, right? Those are all qualities of the object. When Alice speaks or Alice walks, those are behaviors, and behaviors are done through methods, right? So what you're doing with Alice is you're learning object-oriented thinking and coding techniques that you will then translate into more professional programming languages like Java. But what Alice gives us is a fast start. It gives us a real fast start to creating a simple project and with graphics, and allows us to integrate the concepts of object-oriented programming in a very fast way. Okay, my friends? Well, that is my introduction to Chapter 0, the concepts. Thank you.